The land that would one day be called East Africa had not yet learned the shape of mercy. 2.3 million years ago, it was a place governed by hunger and patience, by seasons that arrived without apology and left behind silence. The air carried dust and the scent of wet stone. Rivers cut their paths slowly through open woodland and reed-choked floodplains, swelling and shrinking with rains that followed no calendar. Along their edges, life gathered not by choice, but by necessity. Water drew everything in, and water, more than any predator, decided who would continue and who would vanish. Along these shifting riverbanks moved small groups of early humans, ancestors later known as Homo Habilis. They were not masters of the land. They did not command fire or shape the earth to their will. They lived within narrow margins, balanced between opportunity and extinction. Their bodies were light and fragile, built for endurance rather than strength. Their arms still remembered the trees, their legs had learned the long walk. Their faces carried eyes that studied the ground as much as the horizon, alert to both promise and danger. Every day demanded attention. Every movement required judgment. Stone lay scattered across the plain, broken by ancient forces long before these humans arrived. Some stones were sharp where they had fractured, edges capable of opening hide and sinew. Homo habilis had begun to notice this, not with sudden insight, but through repetition. A broken stone cut differently than a rounded one. A deliberate strike produced an edge that could separate flesh from bone. This knowledge was not abstract. It was practical and immediate. It meant marrow reached sooner. It meant skin removed faster before other mouths arrived. It meant survival stretched a little further into the future. The river was central to this fragile existence. It was a corridor of life through dry land, a place where animals gathered and where plants grew thicker and greener. It offered drinking water and scavenging opportunities when large herbivores fell or were pulled down by other predators. But it was also a boundary, a place where the ground softened, where visibility shortened, where death could rise without warning. The river belonged to older hunters, creatures shaped not by thought but by ancient design. Beneath the slow-moving surface waited a presence older than the lineage of Homo itself. Giant crocodilian ancestors patrolled these waters, massive reptiles whose forms had already been refined by millions of years of evolution. Their bodies were low and heavy, armored in overlapping scales that turned away teeth and claws. Their jaws were wide and powerful, built not for struggle, but for finality. They did not chase, they waited. Their eyes broke the surface like stones. Their stillness was not absence, it was intent. These crocodiles understood the river in a way no mammal could. They felt vibrations through water and mud. They knew the weight of prey by the pressure it placed on the bank. They learned the paths animals took when they came to drink, the moments when attention faltered. Hunger for them was not urgency, it was patience measured in hours, in days. When they moved, it was with speed that seemed impossible for such bulk. One surge, one closing of jaws, and life was redirected into the river's depth. Homo habilis did not name this danger. There were no words for predator or prey, no stories to warn the young. There was only memory carried in the body. Muscles tensed near water, eyes scanned reeds more carefully than open land. Feet tested the firmness of mud before weight was committed. Fear existed not as thought, but as reflex. It was learned through loss. On a day unmarked by anything but heat and thirst, a small group approached the river's edge. The dry season had narrowed the waterway, concentrating life along its banks. Tracks crisscrossed the mud, antelope, ancient buffalo, birds, and the heavy grooves left by reptiles sliding between water and shade. The humans moved slowly, stopping often. One carried a sharp stone, its edge dulled from previous use. Another held nothing but watched constantly, head turning with each sound. They were drawn by more than water. Near the bend of the river lay the remains of a carcass, partially stripped by other scavengers. The smell of decay mingled with sweetness, signaling opportunity. Meat meant energy. Energy meant time. Time meant another day alive. The decision to approach was not discussed. It emerged through shared movement, through bodies leaning forward together. The river surface appeared calm, sunlight reflected in broken patterns. Birds waited nearby, unconcerned. Nothing moved in the water. The crocodile lay submerged just beyond sight, its body pressed into the riverbed, its lungs holding air with practiced restraint. It had felt the footsteps long before the humans reached the bank. Each vibration traveled through mud and water, mapped by a nervous system tuned to such signals. The crocodile did not react. Reaction came later. The humans spread slightly, maintaining distance from one another while staying close enough to respond. One knelt near the carcass, stone raised carefully. The smell was stronger now. Flies lifted and settled again. The water lapped softly at the bank, erasing small footprints as quickly as they were made. The crocodile shifted imperceptibly, adjusting position with a movement so small it disturbed nothing above. Time slowed into a fragile balance. The humans focused on the carcass, on cutting quickly before others arrived. Their attention narrowed, pulled inward by task and hunger. This narrowing was dangerous. It always had been. Predators relied on it. The crocodile sensed the moment when awareness thinned, when bodies leaned closer to the water without noticing. The attack was not dramatic. There was no roar, no prolonged struggle. The crocodile surged upward with explosive force, jaws opening and closing in a fraction of a second. One human was seized at the leg and pulled violently toward the river. The sound was brief, a sharp cry cut short by impact and water. Mud and blood clouded the surface. The others froze, their bodies reacting before any understanding formed. One stumbled backward, another raised arms instinctively, stone falling uselessly into the mud. The crocodile twisted, using its mass and the resistance of water to overpower its prey. The human's grip on the bank failed. Fingers clawed at wet earth and found nothing to hold. Within moments, both were gone beneath the surface, swallowed by brown water that closed without a trace. The river resumed its slow movement, indifferent to the sudden absence. The survivors stood in silence, hearts pounding, lungs burning with shallow breaths. They did not rush forward, they did not scream. Their bodies held the memory of what had just occurred with a clarity that needed no explanation. One life had ended, another path had been marked as dangerous. The carcass lay abandoned, opportunity transformed into warning. This moment did not change the world immediately. It did not reshape the land or alter the course of evolution in a single stroke, but it carved itself into behavior. The river would never again be approached without hesitation. Water would be tested more carefully. Groups would spread wider, assign attention not only to the ground, but to the surface of still water. The cost of distraction had been made visible, and visibility was the beginning of knowledge. Over generations, such moments accumulated. Losses became patterns. Survival favored those who noticed absence as much as presence, those who sensed danger not only when it moved, but when it remained still. Homo habilis did not understand crocodiles as a species or rivers as ecosystems, but they learned through repetition which places demanded caution and which demanded speed. The crocodile returned to its resting place, digestion beginning slowly. It would not hunt again for some time. Its existence continued unchanged, governed by the same rhythms that had shaped its ancestors. For the reptile, the encounter was unremarkable. For the humans, it echoed long after, influencing where feet stepped and how long bodies lingered near water. The landscape held both of these truths at once. It did not privilege one lineage over another. It allowed both to persist, each shaped by the presence of the other. The river remained a line of life and death, drawing creatures together and deciding outcomes without intention. As seasons turned, Homo habilis continued to walk these lands. They grew slightly more skilled with stone, slightly more aware of patterns in the world around them. They remained vulnerable, small figures moving through a domain dominated by larger, older forms, yet they endured. Not through strength, but through attention, not through dominance, but through memory. The giant crocodiles would one day give way to other forms, their reign along these rivers ending as climates shifted and competitors emerged. Homo habilis, too, would pass, replaced by descendants with larger brains and more complex tools. But here, in this moment near the river's edge, both existed fully, bound together by a brief and deadly intersection. The river continued to flow, carrying silt from distant highlands, reshaping its banks grain by grain. It remembered nothing of the struggle that had occurred along its edge. The land absorbed the blood and returned to stillness. Only the living carried the trace forward, encoded in caution and distance, in the silent pause before approaching water. In the deep time of the earth, such encounters were countless and unnoticed, yet each one pressed gently on the future, guiding movement, shaping instinct, narrowing and widening possibilities. Life did not advance through grand victories, but through moments survived and moments lost, balanced on edges as sharp as stone. The riverbank remained, patient and unchanged, waiting for the next convergence of thirst, hunger, and attention. And somewhere beneath the surface, stillness held its breath.